It is indeed a pleasure to have this privilege to play here for you. And we intend to give you a very fine program, so just settle back, relax, and enjoy the moment.
What up? Morning. Hey. Happy Thursday. Pardon me. What's up, Meg? Good morning, Meg. Man. Oh my God, my lips look so shiny. My lips look so shiny. I probably said this on a previous, mentioned this on a previous live stream that I bought lip plumper by mistake. Because I just thought it was just regular clear lip gloss. And yeah, I'm like, I'm the last person that needs lip plumper. And that's what I got on now. So see if my soup coolers just get bigger and bigger as we talk. Nah, good morning. I looked a little washed out. I don't know what's going on. It's okay. Good morning, Whiskey Neat. Whiskey Neat, you gotta teach me how to take those like bomb ass Instagram photos of food. Cause I am that girl that will photograph a busting ass meal, a banging ass meal. So anyway, good morning. Good morning. Did you see what I teased out this morning? Not in the newsletter. The newsletter was just kind of catching folks up on what I talked about yesterday, both here on Twitch and IG. But the little like Twitter notification thing that I try to make sure it goes out before I hit live. It was like, you know, the Murdaugh murder coverage has a white supremacy issue. Yeah, salacious. Yeah. I'm sure Will folks from Fitz News will love to talk shit about that. But yeah, so I want to talk about it. I think I've been avoiding it. It's two things. It's layered. It's layered like everything in life, right? I'm not necessarily that interested in ghetto ass, the ghetto ass behavior of obscenely wealthy and privileged and powerful white people. But then again, there's another aspect of I just really wasn't interested. Like I never like, oh, I wonder what happens next. It's not like, you know, when Serial, good morning, Justin. It's not like when Serial became like a really interesting podcast. Like, it's not that, you know, I think just like a lot of people here, a lot of people, period, a lot of folks had like there was a time I think like I'm probably late 20s, early 30s. I would just like watch the fuck out of Dateline. Like I just would Forensic Files, all those like really icky murder scene type shows. Like I couldn't get enough of it, and I had friends who couldn't get enough of it. Right, it ran the gamut too. It wasn't specific to like any one race. Maybe even more so, I think women. I think that's something that has been concluded. Like women really are into like true crime and into all those like whatever. But then there was a time when my appetite changed. Like after Serial, there just became this huge boom in true crime podcasts that were just, to me, just really exploitative and unnecessarily gratuitous in terms of how they kind of describe cases. And then like what I liked about Serial was that we're talking about brown people. We're talking about people of color. We're talking about young people who graduated high school around the time I graduated from Maryland, an area that I'm familiar with, and, you know, have lived in at that area like really briefly at certain points in my life. Like, I don't know, Serial just to me was also about justice too, or the criminal justice system. And of course the true crime element of it made it alluring. I'm not dismissing it. But nah, just like the Murdaugh stuff don't even like, it just didn't interest me, even though I have a friend from that area, from the Charleston County area, who has always put me up on game about this family, even before like the crazy murders hit the news. And it's the black activists. I don't want to say their names for fear of retribution. But this person has always put me up on game about this Murdaugh family, and I'm more intrigued about how this family came into power and prominence, how they maintained power and prominence for almost 100 damn years, I'm more interested in learning about what cases they prosecuted. It's been widely reported by like Island Packet that, you know, they sent this family throughout various stages, I guess, or various moments. They've sent upwards to like 14 people to the electric chair. I'm more interested in like that, like how they chose to prosecute, what they chose not to prosecute, so on and so forth. Disparities, how many poor people of color have been disenfranchised by, you know, I got a prosecutor's bias anyway. Like I'm just not a fan of prosecutors. So I know, because I know how our legal system, our justice system favors those with money versus those, you know, those without. And so I'm more interested in that. And so the coverage that we're seeing from like corny ass Fitz News, which is immensely popular, not hating on the hustle, but hating on Fitz News in general and their ideology and the way they lift up white supremacy and make it palatable and try to make it like innocuous. But like Fitz News and all these other podcasts, like it's real cornball, and it's like this salaciousness. It's this trying to copy and paste from the more prominent podcast podcasts like, you know, what is it? My Favorite Murder, which that name is just cringe. I remember in real time having a problem with the name of that podcast. And I mean, calling your fan base murderinos and shit. I just think that that's really problematic. And so I want to talk about it. So I'm going to lean in, but I'm going to lean in with some sort of race and class analysis, and also going to talk more about our country's obsession with true crime. And Lord knows I emailed myself a bunch of links, and I hope y'all here for the ride. I hope y'all enjoy it. I hope this is something that y'all will fuck with. If not, I don't care. I care, but I just gotta, I don't know, because I don't know how many shows or how many live streams I gotta dedicate to this shit. But then if shit pops off, like with city council, why not like add my lens to it? I don't know. I'm going back and forth because I don't want to be like a hypocrite either. But we all hypocrites, right? Good morning. So shout out to Charleston Weather. Let's start it off. Boom. Ooh, 8 minutes. I didn't talk for 20 minutes. Victory is mine. All right, 8 minutes in. Charleston Weather. This is what we up against today. If you in Charleston, South Carolina, you in this area, this is the forecast. Mostly cloudy today. Feels like 75. I read somewhere it's supposed to be like 4 degrees cooler than yesterday, but you know, humidity is still a thing. What is it? 96% humidity. So it ain't gonna be cooler than anything. Today, mostly cloudy with a slight chance of thunderstorms. Ooh, my favorite. Slight chance of showers in the morning, little chance of showers in the afternoon. It's Charleston, y'all know how it is. Yeah. Oh, we all got a little or a lot of bit of hypocrite, Justin. I feel you though. Appreciate the cosign. All right, so that's the weather. And oh yeah, we're gonna get into this. Yeah, like this is, and I don't know if Evelyn will watch this later or whatever, but I remember in real time responding, I think having an emotional response to this episode of 1A, and I want to fast forward to the part that I think is extraordinarily substantive. But this whole episode, this entire episode from February 2021 of 1A really gets into it. It really kind of like, this is my type of analysis about like, why are we so obsessed with crime podcasts, right? All right, so let's but first let me see. We got videos to watch. I do want to do a news roundup. Not gonna be able to get to everything that I've kind of queued up for myself on YouTube, but I'm trying to make sure that the content that I lift up is interactive. I wanted to also, did I even do the yeah, I did. I'm like, did I download today's? Yeah, I did. Front page of today's, we're not going to really get too deep into the local reporting, but this is the front page of today's state newspaper. Okay, Thursday, September 16th. The month is just going by. It was just September 4th. Good morning, Jessica. Good morning. So yeah, I guess because this is what prompted me to just lean into talking about the Murdaughs this morning and why the coverage is so problematic. And I put white supremacy in there, yes, to be a hook, but also just to say that I do believe white supremacy is at the heart of how the story is being covered. White supremacy in terms of like they're not acknowledging, like with the whole unmask, I still got the sign, unmask our kids protests that has white nationalists embedded within and organizing within. and people who participated in insurrection on January 6th. Like with that story, because it is a story, that's a phenomenon. They took out a big old, shout out D for putting me onto the ad that they put in the paper. But like with that story, we are not talking about how this white family has wielded power in this region, in a region that has a huge black population. We're not talking about class. We're not talking about race. We're not talking, and I get it. The victims, a lot of the victims of recent Murdaugh adjacent crimes, a lot of, who is this? A lot of the victims have been white people. Or like I believe the maid was a woman of color. I think the maid that died that died in the home after a fall. That whole thing too. But I know, right? I'm like, well, Mika, the victims have been a white mom, white son. The son was in that fatal boat crash. Responsible for that fatal boat crash that killed a white girl. I understand all that, but I think at the core of the Murdaugh coverage is this reluctance or refusal to acknowledge like this. I think their crimes, or rather, I think that there is more to examine in terms of how they've maintained power, because I think what has bubbled up to mainstream or mainstream news coverage, what's bubbled up there, to me, is probably indicates that there's way more. And that's what my folks on the ground have intimated to me. There's way more below the surface that never gets attention because it deals with black bodies, right? So there's a fixation on white criminality when it impacts white folk and the whole murder thing. So anyway, this would make me kind of lean into it. I really don't care about this ghetto ass suicide plan, which I don't even think is a suicide plan. I think it's just an act of desperation to deflect away from the fraud and the embezzlement. And to quote Black China, the embezzlement. I don't know what's going on with this family, but I did want to cover the front page real quick. So outside of the Murdaugh murder mystery, right? Oh, the housekeeper was white. Thank you, Joni. I wasn't sure. Thank you. I guess that was me stereotyping. I just assumed they had brown people all up and through their house cleaning and stuff. No shade to housekeepers. I come from a long line of domestics, so I'm not trying to shade it. All right, so yeah, walkout exposes rift. This is state newspaper front page. Walkout exposes rift in Richland 2 school board. Haven't read this story, but I wanted to read the headline to you, just so you know what's going on. If not here locally within schools, what's going on, in the state with all the stuff happening regarding masks, regarding what's this about though? It's various things. Oh wow. Okay. This other headline here in the front page, right here in the center: DHEC leader denies political shape. DHEC leader denies politics shape South Carolina agencies co-response. It's a political. I mean, these are political appointees. To deny that politics shape the agency's response is ludicrous. It quite definitely does. I look forward to reading this later or reading more about this. The other front page I want to, of course, take a look at is our local news here in Charleston. All right, SLED again. Alex Murdaugh shot and scheme. Who's on this one? Avery Wilkes is on it, and Steve Garrison, and Glenn Smith. So I'm a fan. So definitely gonna read this later. Let me see. Attorney allegedly sought insurance for son. And then over here, state investigating serious death. I can't read today, y'all. State investigating mysterious death of Murdaugh housekeeper. Yeah. And you got McMaster over here making news. McMaster, Kershaw, a model amid virus. Again, just like Shealy, it sounds like from what I read about this, it sounds like people like Shealy and McMaster are looking for stats that confirm their bias. So that's there. And then there's a whole military story in the middle of the paper. Military members face vaccination deadlines. That is something to watch, though. That is something to watch. It's crazy how this vaccination thing goes right down like this patriotic party line stuff. All right, at the bottom of the paper, some GOP urge access to other COVID therapies, and I think we're gonna get into that with the video news coverage, because I want to do a quick news roundup and then hop into the Murdaugh coverage and its white supremacy issue. All right, boom, boom. Yeah, let's just get into it. So I know a lot of people talking about the I can't even say the word. I'm not even gonna try it. Was it mono? Let's watch some coverage on it. Hold on one second. Let me get to where I think is important. Let me see. I'm looking for Charleston coverage first. Yeah, or South Carolina coverage. Here we go.
Are an effective way to treat COVID-19 patients, but with a surge of cases and a lack of support. Doctors say monoclonal antibodies are an effective way to treat COVID-19 patients, but with a surge of cases and a lack of supply, South Carolina doesn't have much to give, any in some cases. News 19's Julia Kaufman joins us now with those details.
Monoclonal antibodies are lab-produced molecules that mimic the immune system's attack on virus cells like COVID-19 that can potentially be dangerous. Every state receives shipments of the antibodies for healthcare providers to treat COVID-19 patients. Just last week, Governor McMaster was promoting monoclonal antibodies, saying they're proven to be effective in helping fight serious illness from COVID. But now, South Carolina doesn't have any to give.
There have been
I didn't know that.
Of approximately 13,000 doses that have been made by providers of antibodies since August 30th that we need to make up in some way.
All those orders have now been canceled. Melanie Matney with the State Hospital Association says the federal government is reworking the supply system and a new small shipment will go out in a few weeks.
We have not really received significant antibodies since late August, so there is already a backlog of patients and people who need antibodies. Hospitals and other providers have been working with their current levels of supplies. So now there's starting to be a much greater demand and a much greater need for antibodies.
While demand outweighs supply for the antibodies,
Senate
Minority Leader Brad Hutto says this highlights the importance of getting vaccinated.
If people are thinking, well, I don't really need to get the vaccine,
that's the rationale.
I can wait, and if I do get COVID, I'll get a monoclonal antibody. We don't have any right now. There isn't any. There's not enough being produced.
This is a member of the GOP, right? It bears repeating. Let's get it from the tippy top.
Outweighs supply for the antibodies. Senate Minority Leader Brad Hutto says this highlights the importance of getting vaccinated.
If people are thinking, well, I don't really need to get the vaccine because I can wait, and if I do get COVID, I'll get a monoclonal antibody. We don't have any right now. There isn't any. There's not enough being produced for South Carolina to have what we need.
Matney filled in Hutto and other leaders of the General Assembly on the supply issue Wednesday morning.
I think it was on the paper.
Suggested to us that one thing we may want to promote is that people get the monoclonal antibody because it was showing good results. Then flip forward till today, apparently so many people are asking for it that there's not enough of it being produced, at least on a temporary basis.
Leaders of the General Assembly meet with the Hospital Association weekly.
Can somebody help me out? I didn't cover this in science growing up, either in school, in secondary, post-secondary. Education. I didn't cover this. So are the antibodies, do they have the virus? I know our bodies produce antibodies once the virus is introduced, right? Like, so I know that's what the vaccination process, on a very basic level, that's what happens. It helps our body respond, create the antibodies that will attack the virus if we become infected with COVID-19, right? So I get that. So are the antibodies, do they have any? Because I don't understand why you won't get the vaccine, but you'll get the antibodies that know how to fight that virus. Like, to me, I don't know. I'm trying to understand people who are like, no, I'm not going to do the vaccine, but I'm going to do ivermectin, the human form of ivermectin, which we've totally forgotten, ignored, and didn't really discuss that there's more than one ivermectin, which I didn't know. And that's how corporate media can kind of lead us astray, not covering the whole situation. Anyway, but I don't understand the rationale behind people like saying, oh, I'll take ivermectin or the antibody treatment. If someone can help me out with that, I super appreciate it.
COVID-19 updates. Hutto says lawmakers will likely return to the State House this fall to allocate more federal funding to hospitals when they need it. Matney says South Carolina expects to receive around 4,000 doses of the antibodies from the federal government in a few weeks. And they're working to decide which providers will need the treatments most. In Columbia, Julia Kaufman, News 19, WLTX.
That is bananas. I didn't know there was a backlog. I think I saw it again. It was reported, but not as much as you would think. Yeah, again, I just wanted to get some more news roundup. There was something from WCNC from Charlotte that I thought I wanted to. Oh, well, let me watch it here. No clue. Wife MD. I know your wife is a doc. That's what your wife said that? You'll ask your bro, he's a research doctor. I would love to just chime in from whatever you can you can glean. Let me just watch this real quick. Maybe I'll learn something.
When we make the news makes sense. At the beginning of the pandemic, doctors had no specific treatment for COVID-19. But now some patients are seeing some real success with something called monoclonal antibody therapy. There's a lot of buzz around monoclonal antibodies.
Let me tell you something. If my parents got a breakthrough case, I will drive them to the edge of this earth to find this. Because I do believe that this therapy will help tremendously. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic where we were all scared shitless because they didn't know how to treat COVID and like they were turning patients over, so that, being face down, they thought that was helpful, that you survived, it has better survival rates. Like, remember, there was no treatment. Like, outside of vaccines, and vaccines are not cures, they're not treatments. They just help perhaps lessen the symptoms, right? But, like, this is a bona fide and widely accepted treatment and therapy. And I think that this is why I really can't stand Governor McDisaster. Instead of making COVID-19 so political, why don't you take all those millions that we got instead of using COVID money on infrastructure, use Biden's infrastructure money on infrastructure, use the COVID money on making sure securing enough of this therapy so that we don't have a backlog. And it's interesting to see the South Carolina GOP, because I do think those who are averse to getting the vaccine, right, we know that they kind of skew a little bit Republican or whatever, or a little bit more conservative. I do think that they are running to get this therapy, and now it's in short supply, if not completely scarce. So why didn't McMaster make sure that we had enough of this therapy to meet the needs? I will not understand why. I don't know.
Body therapy recently. So what do all those words mean, and how is this treatment helping?
Yeah, let me stop talking. Let's listen.
Your body naturally makes antibodies in a response to an infection.
Okay.
Monoclonal antibodies are the same thing, except they're made in a lab. And they're specially designed to target the coronavirus. The monoclonal antibodies attack the virus's spike proteins and give your immune system time to launch its own response.
Okay.
Doctors say this treatment helps prevent the worst symptoms of COVID-19 and keeps folks out of the hospital. Right now, monoclonal antibody therapy is only recommended for high-risk COVID patients, like people with pre-existing conditions or those over 65. It's most effective when given in the first few days after COVID diagnosis. The doctors say it's not a replacement for the vaccine, and the best way to prevent COVID is still rolling up your sleeve. And that,
I will say, like, this is when we start like having that deeper conversation about Western medicine, how like doctors are incentivized because our healthcare industry, our healthcare system is an industry, and it's a for-profit industry. And because money is the incentive, there's no incentive for doctors to keep us well, right? Like, so if you paid doctors to keeping us well, we'd have more access to things that actually, we'd have more access to things like this therapy, or we'd have more access to things that just help us maintain health and wellness, versus we have an abundance of medications that treat symptoms but don't get at the root of what causes the symptoms or causes the illness, right? It's just like eradicating white supremacy. Like, you can't just do a lot of nice empty calorie nonprofit work and emergency assistance. No, you have to eradicate poverty, eradicate white supremacy, eradicate the ill. You can't just like do the fluffy stuff that just kind of treats the symptoms. You have to actually get to the root of it, right? So that's a larger conversation. Justin, you said something in the chat. No clue why people would be okay with those over the vaccine, right? Especially that it's made in a lab. We just heard, right? Especially that it's made in a lab, right? Jessica, you said they gave it to your cousin and she died anyway. Oh shit, that's really interesting. Jeez. I hope people aren't, and they say at the end of this video, I hope people aren't, they are relying on it though. That's what I'm seeing and hearing that more. Like, well, I'll just get the monoclonal, like y'all know I can't say it. I'll just get the the antibodies. Can't say shit. I can't even say Whiskey Neat's name. And it's not, I can say it in my head. It just doesn't come out my mouth. I don't know. Hence Whiskey Neat. All right. I wanted to cover some other like stories that like around coronavirus before we hop into Murdaugh and murder mysteries and the obsession with all of that, right? With true crime podcasts and shit. Before we get into how problematic and white that shit and how exploitative that whole thing is, I did want to just do a couple more clips on our state's reaction or response to the coronavirus. So this is, remember I told you, I said that college football is going to be one to watch. Now, along with the Cooper River Bridge Run here locally, I think we're going to start seeing some interesting statistics around folks who've attended these college football games that kicked off a few weeks ago. So let's just play this.
USC will be enforcing a mask mandate at Williams-Brice Stadium at the next 2 home football games.
What?
This comes after the city of Columbia imposed a mask mandate September 8th. School administrators say masks are now required in crowded outdoor spaces.
So what that tailgate gonna look like?
Such as the stadium during games, on busy sidewalks, and other popular outdoor areas where it's impossible to...
I'm gonna ask a real ignorant question. Yes, I've been in Columbia on a game day or after a game day. Do they tailgate there? Like they do, right? Like, cause I'm assuming they got a tailgate, right? They tailgate, right? Like over here with this grassy I don't know. I have never been to a game. I have no desire to go to a Gamecock game on game day, but I've driven through Columbia.
Remain 6 feet apart. The mandate will apply to the upcoming Kentucky football game September 25th.
I'm so sorry.
And the game against Troy October 2nd. The ordinance will remain in effect until October 8th.
Jeez. Not shout out, but my condolences. My condolences to both you, Jessica, and you, Justin. I'm so sorry about your aunt. So you two as an example, people are treating the antibody therapy as a cure, and it's not. And so while it's so sad to hear about your loss, thank you for sharing, because I learned, now I know, and that helps me manage expectations. God forbid Ben and Trudy, left Twix and right Twix, God forbid they have a breakthrough case, you know? And so that helps me manage expectation though. If anyone in my immediate gravity is infected with COVID and is lucky enough to receive the therapy, but it looks like if you're in South Carolina, SOL. One more clip about I wanted so we did USC. Let's go to a black college. Let's go to Claflin. Last COVID update.
And I was able to upload my card and to receive my $500 incentive. It helped bring down my bill tremendously. You could use that for books or however it may be needed to aid for you. But
oh girl, pull your mask up. What'd she say? Wait, she said how much?
And I was able to upload my card and to receive my $500 incentive.
Oh, $500.
It helped bring down my bill tremendously. You could use that for books or however it may be needed to aid for you. But for me personally, it was a big help. $500 is a lot.
Claflin students like Imani Lucky will now receive $500 per semester if they show proof of getting the COVID-19 vaccine.
Being able to, bring down from my room and board, which is what I had to pay for, it's allowing me to be able to stay on campus currently, which is very tremendous for me because I wanted to be able to come back so that I could get my college experience before I graduate.
All right.
That incentive ties directly with the institution's mission of having 80% of the entire campus vaccinated. During the month of September, Claflin's hosting a vaccination clinic every Wednesday to reach that goal.
All
the
right.
institution's PIO, George Johnson, says the school is doing everything in its power to make sure students are on campus.
What we're doing here on campus, we just want to provide that Claflin experience for them, and so we want them to come back If it's that we're providing the incentives, that's going to help to make their decision to come back, we were happy to do that.
The incentives doesn't stop there for the Panther community. The South Carolina Department of Education was on campus Wednesday offering $25 Domino's gift cards and raffling a chance to win headphones or a 50-inch TV. Student Government Associate President Lauren Tolbert says her team is campaigning for their peers to get vaccinated.
I implore all of my peers to get vaccinated, everyone on campus, not just students, faculty, staff, and everyone in the Orangeburg community to get vaccinated.
Come on, black people.
Get tested and stay
Lead by
masked up
example.
so that we can,
Let's
we
go.
can keep our community as safe as possible.
For Street Squad Orangeburg, I'm Devin Johnson.
Yo, remember when like on college campuses, the only thing you could guarantee getting at a table was getting into credit card debt? Tell me why my ass freshman year, like that was a big problem when I went to college. So early 2000s, freshman year, the first week of class, all these tables set up with all these credit card companies and shit. Tell me why my ass had a Shell gas station card. Like I didn't even have a car freshman year. And I just signed up and I got into so much. I had an American Eagle card. I had a limited card. I'm showing my fucking age. American Eagle, limited, Shell. I got into so much debt. Like shout out to I'm gonna call her Left Twix. Shout out to Trudy, Left Twix. Like she got me out of that. We paid down that debt. Got some stuff charged off. You know, after like a few years, some stuff you could like dispute and stuff. Good googly. All that for a t-shirt. Like, and now you got Claflin out there raffling televisions and AirPods or whatever. That's what's up. Like, Jessica, you are so funny. Damn right I'd have fucking needles. I'd be like running to get that $500 taking off whatever student loan debt or student debt I have. All right, so let's get to it. All right, so we want to talk about, I gotta open up. I gotta open up. Let me see. American, you said your husband's laughing. He did. He's pushing those cards. He got him. I think I had a Banana Republic, all the limited. Good morning, Honor Marks. All the limited companies. Yeah, I'm like, girl, you don't even have a car. What you need a gas card for? I think I ran it up though when I came home on break, and you know when you took the family station wagon. I think that's what happened. I would use it on break to like just have gas money. Well, have gas money debt. All right. I wanted to. Oh shit. Oh, shout out to the new patron. Oh. All right. I sent myself a bunch of emails this morning. Here we go. A bunch of emails, all dealing with true crime and other stuff. Let me see. Yup, this one. I should have had this set up before. Boom. This one, and I'm tying this into the Murdaugh coverage, and it's not about just, and look, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad about true crime. Again, you talking to the Dateline, like Stone Phillips back in the day, like all the way to current, to Tamron Hall, like big, I get it. But then there was this thing with the podcast though, where it kind of took this turn where it's like, yo, this feels real icky. Like you talking about these people and like over wine and this, and like that icky like white feminism thing. And I know when I say white feminism, a lot of white women get really mad and log off and unsubscribe and unfollow me whenever I indict white feminism. But you know what I'm talking about, right? It's that feminism that's like almost like a caricature of feminism, right? It's a caricature of feminism that where like you equate things like, I don't know, just like the wine drinking and like the real basic stuff, Ugg boots, Starbucks, like that kind of thing. And like that's always you're saying like to me, it's like a certain type of culture and also consumer culture that's very white woman led, And it really, to me, it commodifies. Sometimes these podcasts specifically, let me talk about the podcast, they commodify things that shouldn't be commodified. They satirize things that aren't funny, that actually indicate that there's a huge problem, but they kind of gloss over it and make it funny and make it entertaining versus making it informative. And there's a place for all of it, but there's a place for a lot of it. Let me stop letting y'all see my email. But I wanted to kind of hop into, and I think the ones that really hit it, the articles that I read that really knock it out the park are the ones from The Appeal. Not this one right here. This from The Appeal. Live, love. Exactly. Live, love, laugh, be sexy, don't get murdered, that kind of thing. Oh, wait, Justin, going back to the freshman year thing. Justin, you said they did that at the mailboxes freshman year. Yup, right at the mailboxes. Yeah. Anyway, absolutely. I think I had a Firestone card too. What the fuck? How do you have a car? All right, going back to this. So this article was framed in a way like this was just very easy and convenient for me to like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I want to talk about this morning. The enduring pernicious whiteness of true crime, right? And so like this article, this is written by Elon Green. And also there was a another article that I read this morning. Let me see. I think it was the lady killed. No. It was something else. Damn, I just read it. But it was about the, oh, here we go. Here, history. Yeah, Murder is My Business. And it was was it in the New Yorker? It was in the New York Review of Books. And that one, by Carolyn Fraser, Murder is My Business. That one was really good because it referenced this writer here, Elon Green, and talked about just how it's just like a lot of the podcasts, of course, they like to cover white crime or white victims, right? And talk about the disparities there and why that is. It's not necessarily just because folks are just refusing to cover black stories, but how black stories aren't covered by the press. How black murder, black kidnappings aren't covered the same way that the murder of a white woman or the rape of a white woman is covered. So there's going to be an that's how white supremacy embeds itself in the actual genre. That's just one example, right? And so let me get to let's get to the Murdaugh stuff, right? Let's get an update, and then we can kind of, and then I found this a while ago too, like not even too long ago. It's from a year ago from Vice News. There's this whole there's just this really weird thing, this really weird bounce of this ball when it comes to true crime and some of the most insidious things that have happened in American history, and how it becomes like there's now a fan culture around the Columbine shooters. I had no fucking clue until I stumbled across this a few months ago. So we're going to get into that. And that's what I'm fearing of the whole Murdaugh thing. I'm fearing the t-shirts coming. I'm fearing Halloween costumes coming. I'm fearing people romanticizing and making victims out of this family when they're not victims. They wield way too much power, and they wield way too much influence. You've been in power for almost 100 years. Way too much for them to be seen as victim, but you know that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's happening with the matriarch, right? And not to say that the matriarch or anyone that was recently murdered, no, because the son is like, no, the family's trash. Start there. The family is an abundance of fucking trash. I'm sorry. I don't even know what I'm fucking dancing around. Let's go ahead and just look at some recent news about the Murdaugh shit. I don't know.
Good evening. I'm Brendan Clark, and we want to get straight to developing news in the Murdaugh investigation. Attorneys for Alec Murdaugh confirmed that a warrant has been issued for his arrest, and Murdaugh is expected to turn himself into Hampton County officials sometime tomorrow afternoon. This is just one of many updates, many details we have received today and tonight concerning this case. This is Lexi Morris joining us in studio. And Lexi, this is a huge development in this investigation.
Is it?
Yeah, Brendan, the developments in this case just keep coming. The latest being an announcement from Alec Murdaugh's attorney that a warrant has been issued for his arrest on one charge of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. All this comes on the heels of a Walterboro man being arrested for assisting Murdaugh in a botched suicide attempt.
That Saturday morning, he was trying to get off the opioids. He was not taking any of them, was in a massive depression, realized that things were going to get very, very, very bad, and he decided to end his life.
After surviving a hit job that he orchestrated, Alec Murdaugh himself is now wanted by law enforcement. Murdaugh hired 61-year-old Curtis.
Side note, wow, this dude's face close up, it's real gnarly. No shade. But like, side note, when this story broke, everybody was like, that don't sound right. I know everybody was like, this don't sound right. This can't be. Like, I didn't even I wasn't even interested beyond, I'm gonna say 30 seconds. I'm like, that sounds like an inside job. He got shot in the head and then he was talking and texting his brother and he called 911. I'm like, oh, this don't sound right.
Smith to shoot him with the hope that his son could claim a $10 million life insurance policy.
It was an attempt on his part to do something to protect his child.
On Wednesday, Smith was booked at the Hampton County Jail for his role in assisting with the attempted suicide. According to SLED, Murdaugh gave Smith the gun and told him what to do. Murdaugh's lawyers say it didn't take much convincing.
This guy shooting him in the head, didn't try to persuade him not to do it, didn't hesitate at all, he did. There was an entrance and exit wound.
Smith and Murdaugh have a history. Murdaugh represented Smith in at least 2 lawsuits. Another thing the two have in common,
that's weird.
A drug problem. Prior to his appearance in Hampton County, Smith appeared in Colleton County bond hearing unrelated to the Murdaugh incident.
You're going to be bonding out on the charge of distribution of methamphetamine first offense.
Murdaugh's lawyer said that over the past 20 years, many people, including Smith, have taken advantage of Murdaugh's opioid problem.
Alex is totally cooperated with SLED. We called SLED. They didn't call us. He doesn't want, and we don't want.
That's the problem. That's the fucking problem. Yeah, your whole family full of fucking prosecutors. Of course you call SLED. SLED is like y'all's, I don't know, neighborhood watch.
Is an effort to deal with these issues, distracting from and using law enforcement resources that could be used to solve the murders of Maggie and Paul.
We know who killed them.
Harpootlian said that tomorrow Murdaugh will surrender to authorities. He also said they're looking into an individual that may be connected to the murders of Paul and Margaret Murdaugh.
Side note, when is it ever seasonally appropriate in South Carolina to wear a full-length fur coat? Side note, what season we wearing full-length mink or full-length whatever, chinchilla, whatever? I don't know. And they ain't got no coats on. I mean, it can get brisk here. I ain't saying it doesn't, but I don't know. Just because you can wear it, I guess. I don't know. When it's wealthy. Jessica, so when I start to get really big sponsors, you gotta be one of my comedy writers. When it's wealthy outside. I'm like, when is it seasonally appropriate? That's the real crime. You're wearing fur in South Carolina, ma'am. That's the real crime. All right. So when it's wealthy outside. I can't. I love y'all so much. All right, so he about to turn himself in. I'm gonna play this LWLTX and then I'm gonna just do a YouTube search of Murdaugh and y'all gonna see what comes up. It's now bona fide national news. Everybody's jumping on it. All your favorite murder and stay sexy podcasts is gonna be jumping on the wave. Let's just do some more local coverage of this. Brisk.
New developments in a story we've been following for months now. Alex Murdaugh's attorneys have released a statement about a shooting that injured the former lawyer in the head earlier this month while he was changing
Injured him
attire.
in the head.
The statement says at the time of the incident, Murdaugh believed ending his life was his only option. His attorneys also claim someone took advantage of Mr. Murdaugh's alleged mental illness and agreed to take his life by shooting him in the head.
This is so
However,
ghetto.
Charging documents allege Murdaugh conspired with 61-year-old Curtis Smith to have himself killed. And the documents specified if Murdaugh died, his son would have received around $10 million as part of a life insurance policy. Also today, SLED released a statement saying based on their request from the Hampton County coroner, they are now opening a criminal investigation into the death of Gloria Satterfield. And
getting into the housekeeper, outside of Avery Wilkes and their uncovered team, no one was talking about SLED really making it difficult to find out what happened here with these murders, both the more recent murders of the matriarch and the boy that killed his friend in the boat crash, but also the murder of the housekeeper. Like outside of Avery Wilkes, no one is covering that part of SLED's complicity and SLED's basically being, like the lawyer for the family said, they called SLED. The fact that they have so much access in their relationship with SLED is something also that I don't know. And I don't listen to the podcast, so I don't know. Y'all can keep me honest, but I don't think people are paying attention. It's not, and that's not what people want to hear about. That's shit that I want to hear about, right? And like with some of my research into this whole phenomenon and craze of true crime podcasts, one thing that was discussed was that the better ones, or the ones that I probably be more apt to listen to now, like the one called Conviction, talks about police ineptitude. Like if someone starts that series tomorrow about how SLED bungled this shit from the beginning, I'm all the fuck in. I'm all in. And I think the really good true crime podcast talks about police either complicity in covering up a crime, or police ineptitude, or police incompetence and law enforcement incompetence. And not because I'm trying to vilify police for fucking sport, but because we don't really view that institution the way we need to. We just see police officers and law enforcement largely as heroes, and they're not. That's not even what their function, that's not even what they're supposed to perform. It's not just pure heroism. Can they do that? Of course. Have they done it? Of course. Am I grateful for when they save a life? Absolutely. Great. Do your job. Do that, right? Because outside of protecting property, you got to do something. But anyway, I really want to know more about SLED's involvement and SLED's proximity to the family. We remember early on how SLED wasn't saying shit. They weren't listening to, they weren't considering FOIA requests. They closed the damn state agency building to the press, to the public. Charleston City Council, sound familiar? Closed a government building that belongs to the people, closed it to the public, in an effort to cover up certain details regarding this case, right? Oh my gosh.
And the handling of her estate.
Right.
Satterfield was the housekeeper of Alex Murdaugh.
You're right, Jessica.
According to court documents in a wrongful death settlement that listed Murdaugh as the defendant, Satterfield died as a, quote, result of injuries sustained in a trip and fall accident. Today, her sons filed a lawsuit against Murdaugh for a financial settlement in their mother's death. They say they have not yet received any money. Murdaugh's wife and son were found murdered earlier this year.
Oh God. All right, so when you put Murdaugh in and just a basic ass YouTube search, right? You get all this national news coverage. I don't want to do people, but I want to do, GMA been on it in a real weird way. GMA been on it from the beginning. They got now all of them probably got people down here in either Hilton Head or in somewhere in Hampton County. Fuck the New York Post all day. But yeah, let's get to GMA's coverage from yesterday.
That new twist in the murder mystery involving a prominent South Carolina family. A suspect is now in custody in connection with the mysterious shooting of Alex Murdaugh. And authorities say Murdaugh arranged for the man to do it. Eva Pilgrim joins us with the very latest.
So we already know that. Let me see if there's any other layers to this outside of just, let me see. And this was, we just listened to this, the Murdaugh attorney. We just heard, shout out to.
Joining us now exclusively is Alec Murdaugh's attorney, Dick Harpootlian. Dick, good morning to you, sir.
Oh, fuck Dick Harpootlian. I knew that was him.
Good morning.
So, Dick, you've prosecuted serial killers, university presidents. You've represented some characters over the year. You have to admit, this is a pretty unbelievable story.
Yo, Dick, man. He's a Democrat representing this family. Dick Harpootlian's trash anyway, but it's crazy. It's just crazy. I don't. It's such a class analysis that is missing from this, and this nexus of power, and white people with money and privilege protecting other white people with money and privilege.
Story. Your client claiming that he paid someone to shoot him to collect $10 million in insurance money, and the guy missed. Is that the story?
Well, let me elaborate. On Monday, Jim Griffin and I, Alex attorneys, traveled to an out-of-state detox facility where we actually had the first conversation we've ever had with him.
Okay, so lawyer doing lawyer shit, not interested. So as soon as you start bringing up the detox and the addiction, I'm out, right? I'm out. Let me see, CBS, I think yesterday in the morning. Let me see. Yeah, let me see.
Unfolding murder case in South Carolina that's taken a startling turn.
Again,
Alex
more of what we
Murdaugh,
already know, y'all, but
lawyer
just
in that
bear
area,
with me
was
for a
shot
second.
and wounded on Labor Day weekend, nearly 3 months after his wife and son were murdered. No one has been arrested or charged for that double killing, but authorities now say Murdaugh hired a gunman to kill him in an alleged insurance fraud scheme. Nikki Batiste has the rest of the story.
So what I liked about this, look, we already know the broad strokes of this. The cousin. Oh wait, hold up. Hold up. Was there like 911? Hold up. There was something at the end that they said that I thought was interesting.
Oh. Paul were both shot and killed on the family's property in June. Alex Murdaugh made this 911 call when he says he found
I
their
never heard
bodies.
this till yesterday.
I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay. Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
That crime remains unsolved, but Alex Murdaugh is also the subject of a separate investigation. This month, he was forced out of his law firm for allegedly misusing company money.
Yeah.
He released a statement to apologize and also revealed he'd enter rehab for an apparent opioid addiction. Alex Murdaugh is not charged in his shooting and has not responded to requests for comment about that or the fraud allegations. For CBS Mornings, I'm Nikki Batiste in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
You know, I've been watching this story for the last couple of weeks. It's been bizarre from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That he is shot in the head, and then you find out it's grazed, and that he survives, and that he calls 911. It's just...
That's crazy.
There's still been no arrest for the death of the mother and the son, and now he's resigned from his law firm. It's very, very... And the guy who was arrested, Curtis Edward Smith, is a client of his.
Yeah.
Not only is he a bad shot, but he's a client.
And he's a cousin. Y'all saying that's his cousin?
Prominent lawyer. What we mean by prominent is his great-grandfather, grandfather, and father were the top prosecutor in that area for almost 100 years.
Yeah. It's a big story in South Carolina.
Talk about a fall from grace. That's for sure.
No, shut up, Nate. It's not a fall from grace. They never had grace. Yeah, that. All right. So, and we've already watched the Island Packet. We've already watched that, right? Oh God, please stop. Please. Here. We've already watched the Island Package, like the synopsis. We're gonna do it real quick and then we're gonna hop into, again, my commentary or my thoughts on the coverage of what's being perhaps missed, what's being I don't know. Let me wait here. No more ukulele music. No. So yeah, Island Pack has been all over this, of course. Wow. Yeah, they've been all over it. You're seeing a lot of clicks. I'm saying like WCBD Channel 2 News, they get like 30 views, maybe 10 views a clip. Man, anything with Murdaugh in it is getting, look at this, 182,000 views. Like this is the national story. I get it. I do get it. You know, it's getting folks a lot of clicks, a lot of revenue via that, you know, just because of that. I wanted to. Was it the state? Where we watched that history? Yeah, it was the state. Wasn't it?
Served as the 14th Circuit solicitor.
So like this part, and I'm gonna stop it. I'm not gonna listen to
the
whole
Murdaughs
thing.
are a powerful low-country family. For more than 85 years, a Murdaugh has served as the 14th Circuit solicitor. The reign began in 1920 with Randolph Murdaugh Sr. and ended in 2005 when Randy Murdaugh III retired.
And then somebody got hit by a train.
In 1986, Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr. served as solicitor after his...
All right, I talked over that, but listen to this real quick.
Between 1940 and 1986, Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr. served as solicitor after his father's death. making him the longest-serving solicitor in U.S. history at that time. Randy continues to work as a part-time solicitor for the office.
But he just died,
and his
right?
son Richard Alexander Murdaugh works as a volunteer prosecutor in the circuit.
How do you volunteer as a prosecutor?
In South Carolina, a circuit solicitor is comparable to that of a state or district attorney in other jurisdictions. The 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office covers 5 counties in the Low Country: Allendale, Beaufort, Colleton, Hampton, and Jasper.
So this is what, that right there sent me down a rabbit hole of okay, so the family had all this power. Look at all my shit. The family had all this power. Let me see. For like damn near 90 years. No. And I was like, well, I'm more interested in, I don't know, I was more interested in, I'm trying to find it. I went down this rabbit hole, baby. Let me just go to my Twitter. I was like, I just don't understand, there's more to the story than just, ooh, this is weird, someone's on mass, oh, it's salacious, it's all this, right? Skippy, Buster, Randy, right? They all got and one guy hit by a train. Like, are we talking about, wait, is a hurricane coming? Shit. Oh my God. Thanks, Chloe. God damn it. All right. But yeah, it's like, it's just really, their names are really hilarious. Skipper, Skippy, Buster. No one references the red hair though. No discrimination against gingers at all. But like, no one has a nickname that like Brick Top or something. Buster Brick Top or whatever. I'm trying to find my tweets that I did a while ago. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, this was on September 5th. I fell down this rabbit hole right here. And I'm not saying I found anything. You literally have to spend hours going through almost each and every Murdaugh decision or whatever. But I stumbled across this tragic death while researching the murderous Murdaugh dynasty, and I'm going to call him that forever. Not sure if Randolph Murdaugh Sr. could have prosecuted this case, but someone chose not to. It makes you think long and hard about the many miscarriages of justice his family may be linked to, right? So for me, I get into the newspapers, and I saw this story here. Hampton County Negro killed Orrie Taylor. This was a preacher, y'all. Orrie Taylor slain by game warden. And you can barely read it, right? But it's Columbia, September 8th. And this is from like 1930. I think this is from 19. What I say was from? Did I say 1930? No, but this right here. This have it? I forgot the date. It's 1930 something, y'all. That's why it looks like this. It says Columbia, September 18th. Orrie Taylor, Negro, was killed late Wednesday in Hampton County while violating game laws. Convenient. While violating game laws by J. Herman Ziegler, game warden, right? A chief, and it goes on to say he basically was shot by this game warden. It says a coroner's jury this afternoon declared that Taylor came to his death by gunshot wounds at the hands of J. Herman Ziegler, in discharge of his duty as a game warden in defense of his own life. So the white game warden is saying it was in self-defense. Here he goes, had a convenient witness here. Witnesses testified that Taylor raised his gun and started to fire at Tom Ziegler, uncle of Herman, before he was killed. It says he fell a few feet from a dog he had killed while using lights, right? And then the next story I found, the follow-up to it, was that the game warden was just released. Like the case against J. Herman Ziegler, game warden, in connection to the killing of Orrie Taylor, Negro preacher, was not prosecuted. The prosecutor at this time was the Murdaugh family, one of the patriarchs of the Murdaugh family, right? And I just thought that, like, to me, this is more, and again, I know I can be very, very neurotic and singularly focused on disparities and how race complicates crime, complicates our lives in so many different ways. But I do think that this just understanding the Murdaugh family a little bit deeper. And I'm not even, I guess I should try. I'm not a journalist, so I don't have to practice any type of journalistic integrity. So we will recklessly speculate on this live stream. And so part of my reckless speculation is that I'm going to assert because any white, wealthy, dynastic family anywhere, there's always some sort of, there's some sort of like overuse of power. There's always some sort of impropriety somewhere in the mix. If it's not financial, then it might be race, it might be something else. But you know, to stay in power this long, for this family to maintain its hold on this region for this long, you don't do that by just being to me, you don't just do that. Your past gotta be loaded with some other things, right? That's just me. I might be off, right? To me, it was a lynching. It definitely, KCJ 18, to me, it was an extrajudicial killing of a black preacher. And I tried to find any other coverage about it. Again, this is in the 1930s, so some of the papers you cannot read. Like, it's hard to even read, even with the help of the database that kind of helps out a little bit. But I got you. Fuck a Vivery? I don't know. But no. But yeah, it was an extrajudicial killing. To me, extrajudicial killings of black people without due process is a lynching. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And it was at the bottom of the article, it says, it says was not prosecuted. And that's crazy. Like, I'm more interested in that. Like their reign over, and from what I understand from folks on the ground, it gets really tricky. That's my word for saying there's something in the milk ain't clean. It gets really tricky. All right. So again, going back to the premise of why I wanted to talk about this today, I wanted to play a little bit from this. Talking about articles like this, the enduring pernicious whiteness of true crime, the genre of podcast. Again, not to make you feel bad. If you listen to My Favorite Murder, do your thing. But it's okay to listen, understanding like underlying themes or problems. And I think the creators, I remember there was controversy about My Favorite Murder, and I remember the podcast host really not leaning into listening to the public about the problematic aspects of that very popular podcast, right? But I remember that, and then I haven't followed it, but I don't know if they've course corrected. I don't know if the podcast still is on. I'm sure it is. This is another piece from BuzzFeed. The future of true crime will have to be different. They're also talking about like this intersection of like, are true crime podcasts ready for the defund the police era, right? So these were written like a couple years ago, and as recently as this year. This is from the UK. I have not read this yet. But the title got my eye, of course. It says the racial bias of true crime, why murder is marketed to white women. Jesus, I need to read that one. I definitely like reared up when I found it, right? Let me just read the first little things, and then we're going to get into it. Horrifying sex crimes, home invasions, kidnappings, night stalkings, disembowelments, cannibalism. These days, you wouldn't have to go further than your favorite streaming service to hear true stories about all of this and more. True crime has been having a moment for a few years now, and women's disproportionately high love of the genre is nothing new. But why is so much true crime content about seemingly marketed to white women? In 2010, before interest in true crime soared to the more mainstream highs of today, a study by Amanda Vickery and R. Chris Fraley found that women are more drawn to true crime stories, whereas men are attracted to other violent genres. And we know that to be true, like channels like Oxygen, that have those shows like Snapped or Married to a Murderer. Like those things are marketed to Lifetime. Lifetime original movies is like the OG, like based on true crime. Law and Order, the police procedurals. We like those, and especially SVU is one of the more popular, I guess, offshoots of the whole Law and Order franchise. But because it deals with women, victims of sex crimes and such and so on, things that really resonate with women, but they're being marketed to white women, and I think that's the intersection that I'm really interested in, especially as it pertains to the Murdaugh case, as to like its soaring popularity here, of course, because it's local. I get it, and it's a name that people are familiar with. I get it. In a lot of ways, this family is wealthy beyond my comprehension and powerful beyond my comprehension. But in so many instances, from what I understand from folks who live in that area, that they are somewhat accessible. Like it was nothing to see Alex go to the local convenience store, which I believe was owned by the family or is owned by the family. I think that's where he bought the beer that night before he got drunk and drove that boat and killed the young lady. I believe that the family had a stake in that I can't remember the gas station store or the convenience store, but if y'all know what that is, drop it in the chat. But I'm really interested in just understanding and unpacking why some of the people who are hosting some of these more popular podcasts, I'm really interested in knowing whether or not they're examining how race and privilege and power are really at the center of this. Because honestly, the fuckery that we're seeing now bubble to the top, I am almost certain, I'm willing to put money on the fact that there's way more like curious stories and crazy stories that we just haven't heard of. So I was listening to this podcast for the second time. I didn't even realize that I had listened to it before until I saw it on my phone that says listen to it again. I'm like, okay. So I re-listened to it this morning as I was preparing for today's live stream, and there's a part, I'm not going to listen to the whole thing.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Samsung. With the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G. Hold yours any way you like. Flip to flex mode for hands-free pics, video calls, and more. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier.
Okay. If it's loud as hell, I'm sorry. It's loud as hell in my ear. RIP your earbuds.
This is 1A. I'm Jen White in Washington. If you can believe it, the craze over the podcast Serial was 6 years ago. I know, time has no meaning. But it didn't just give a huge boost to the podcast industry. It also propelled a torrent of true crime spinoffs. Some of the biggest podcast hits, Serial, Dr. Death, S-Town, and Dirty John, are all about real crimes. And if you look at the charts today, half of the top 10 podcasts are true crime focused. Now, the genre is far from new, but it seems this platform and our fascination with crime and murder are made for each other. Lots to get to, and we'll start our conversation with Jonquilyn Hill. She's the host and reporter of the new podcast, Through the Cracks. This new series comes from our producing station, WAMU, and Jonquilyn is a senior.
And I want to tell y'all, well, let's listen to a little bit of this, and I'm going to go back to videos that more kind of go into the whole phenomena or the craze around the true crime genre. But let's listen to this first, and then we're going to skip like 18 minutes in and hear that analysis that I can't make because I don't have the range, but that people who are in this genre, who are in this realm, this analysis that they make is super on point to me.
Senior producer here at 1A. JQ, it's great to have you on the other side as a guest.
I know. It's great to be on this side of the microphone. Such a new experience.
Well, let's get a bit of background on your show. Through the Cracks shares the story of Relisha Rudd, who disappeared from a D.C. area shelter.
Oh, wow.
In 2014, when she was just 8 years old, Relisha Rudd went missing. But it took 18 days before her family knew something was wrong. Everyone thought that she was with someone different, a family member or a trusted friend.
You know, your granddaughter, Relisha Rudd, is missing. No, she's not. Yes, she is, ma'am. No, she's not. She's with Khalil Tatum.
Mr. Wheeler, you know where your daughter is? Yeah, she at Ashley's house. He said, are you sure?
From that moment, that's when I found out that she was missing. I didn't even know that she was gone.
JQ, tell us more about Relisha's story and, at this point, what we know and what we don't know.
Right. So Relisha Rudd was an 8-year-old who was living in a shelter in D.C. when she disappeared. She was missing about 18 days before anyone
I know,
realized
right?
anything was wrong. And she was last seen in the care of a janitor at the shelter
Yeah,
where
they
she
were at
worked.
the shelter.
The shelter where she worked had a strict no fraternization policy, but it wasn't followed. And shortly after the city realized she was missing, not only was the janitor that she was last seen with found dead, but his wife was found dead.
What?
And Relisha hasn't been seen since.
And you said this is the place where Relisha, she didn't work there, but she and her family were staying there, right?
Yes, she and her family were
Yeah,
living
they
there.
were homeless,
She was an
KCJ,
8-year-old
to your
living at the
point.
DC General Family Shelter.
Mm.
And at the time, they were living there when it was at its peak, and there were about, I think, over 600 children living there at the time.
What made you want to focus on Relisha's story?
Well, when people ask that, I'm really honest. Of course, there's appeal in the true crime genre, and it's a genre that I admittedly consumed. But what stuck with me about
real quick, Joni, before we listen to why she thought it was important to do the podcast on Relisha's story, Joni, to your S-Town, I was like addicted to S-Town. I didn't know they were both. I know this one's produced by a Black woman, but I didn't know S-Town was. But there was in this podcast episode. If you go to this 1A episode, this again from February 8th, 2021 this year. They talk about like how S-Town, while popular and while just really like fascinating, it dealt with suicide, and they felt like they could have done more around the journalism. They could have been more careful. The journalists involved with the storytelling could have been more careful in dealing with the suicidal aspect. So again, not to make anyone feel guilty for listening to Serial, My Favorite Murderer, even though again that definitely not my jam. But like for those who listen to S-Town, Serial, all the other stuff that we listen to, I get it. Cause S-Town had me hooked, okay? And it was just so weird. So weird. The thing with Mercury was really weird too. But like, didn't know that Mercury could do that to you. Didn't know the Mad Hatter came, that whole Mad Hatter thing. Didn't know that. It just makes you think more critically about what you consume, which is what I really want to push folks to do. And I know that's not always comfortable. And people like me who don't mind being a little uncomfortable sometimes. But I really do want to push, just think a little bit more critically about content. But I don't want anyone to feel like I'm coming at your neck. Like I said, look, real quick, before we listen to why she did the Relisha podcast on the missing 8-year-old from the homeless shelter. Y'all know, if you've been following me, you know that I had my attempt. Damn, they don't just go back to where you was at. My attempt, not at true crime, my attempt at, I don't know, criminal justice docu podcast. And that was Free Scotty J. It was like 5 episodes. And then I had to abruptly stop because me and Scotty fell out. But let's get back to we'll play a little bit from that and what I was trying to achieve there. In the spirit of a Serial, in the spirit of some of the better, or what I feel more substantive true crime podcasts, I was trying to do that, but from a local perspective, with my podcast. Yeah, that Mad Hatter stuff was wild, right? S-Town was S-Town and Serial, like the GOAT. Okay, let's continue.
What stuck with me about Relisha's story is the fact that she's this little Black girl. And often little Black girls aren't protected the way they should be. There are so many studies about the
I talked about this too, the adultification of Black girls. I've covered that. I spoke about that on campuses. I've leaned on the scholarship of so many amazing people. But so we're going to get back to that podcast. We're going to hop over to the 18-minute mark or so. But I wanted to go back and again revisit why this is so popular, or examine why this genre is so popular. And we get it, the Murdaugh families, fur coat wearing matriarch, crazy double murder, the death of a housekeeper, the death of a young man that may or may not be linked to the family in some salacious way. So I stumbled across this just because I wanted to kind of get into the mind of, I think, the My Favorite Murder, the key demographic, which again is, according to that UK article, is targeted or marketed directly to white women. So I wanted to kind of understand it more and not condemn it, not be overly critical. But and I just couldn't connect to what these women were saying. I could not connect to drinking a glass of wine while you listen to murder. I'm trying to think, what do I do? 'Cause I don't want to make them feel, I don't want to other them, but I felt like there was a laissez-faire attitude in dealing with something that's so, that impacts families, that impacts communities, entire communities, that impacts the way we view law enforcement. I don't know, there's this cavalier approach to it that I think is really icky. But let me pause it real quick. Yeah, this is real old. Nora ain't been on CBS in the mornings in a minute. All right, here we go.
More people are listening to podcasts than ever before. There are more than 525,000 to choose from. True crime podcasts consistently rank among the top 50. Research shows women overwhelmingly prefer the murder mystery genre. CBS This Morning Saturday co-host Dana
I did not know we were into murder this much.
True crime podcast in Minneapolis to find out why. Dana, good morning.
Good morning. The true crime genre exploded in 2014 with the podcast Serial, which explored the guilt of a man who was serving a life sentence for murder. Its popularity actually helped unearth information that
Side note, do y'all think Adnan did it? Side note, because I didn't listen to this podcast at least 2 times all the way through, watch the HBO stuff, follow his cousin on Twitter. Y'all think Adnan did it? Just a side note. Just want to know. Because I keep going back and forth.
resulted in a new trial for him. But it is not just armchair investigators who are interested in true crime.
I think Jay did it.
You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where 3 friends chug wine, chat true.
Outside that corny ass wine glass bullshit stick, shout out to the content creators who were in closets, who were in boxes, making sure that mic sound nice. I just so relate. I so relate to, that's the only thing I can relate to, is getting that audio to sound like you in some kind of studio, baby. Shout out to all y'all who know how to hook it up.
True crime and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
Kenyon Lang, Amanda Jacobson,
you gotta listen
and
to the
Lucy
podcast,
Fitzgerald,
Hillary.
friends for more than 20 years, and hosts of the popular podcast Wine and Crime.
56-year-old Bobby Bluer was lying face down on the floor of the bus, bleeding.
Where they playfully chat about crime over Cabernet and Chardonnay.
See, I think that's real whack. I don't know. I'm sorry. It's just like pumpkin spice, Ugg boots. Like, I don't know, just something basic about this shit. And I don't understand. I guess people really, I'm sorry. Now I'm alienating people. I'm sorry, y'all. But like, how can you playfully talk about murder? It's like, regardless if it took place in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it happened to somebody. I don't understand how you could just pop a bottle of wine and just be like, ooh, murder.
Chardonnay.
Like, we're funny. We shouldn't do this.
Everyone will love this.
And then
And
we
they
thought
do.
of Wine and Crime, and we thought, okay, well, we've got to nab this title before somebody else does.
For real, Jessica?
Launch the podcast.
We'll have the logo slide that we always have up.
That was February 2017. A year and a half later, they get about 500,000 downloads a month.
Oh,
When they
Carol
turn the
Baskin.
podcast live, they draw fans from across
Tiger
the country.
King, she definitely killed
Why
him.
come tonight?
Wine and Crime is one of my favorite podcasts, and I listen to a lot.
We'll serve the longest sentence because he's the one who actually used a firearm.
All right, and this is where I become a hater. This is where I put my hater hat back on. Well, yeah, because it seldom comes off. As somebody who's been struggling, like, y'all should see me create content. You're going to hear a little bit of it in the Free Scotty J that I'm going to play from my own little docu-series on criminal justice. Like, y'all don't understand. Like, I'm in the car, I'm driving. This is when I'm like intermittently employed at that. I'm driving to Charlotte. I'm going to the scene of the crime. I'm recording things. I'm taking pictures. I'm making the thumbnails. And I'm like, damn, ain't nobody, like 10 people listening to my podcast this week. And like, you keep trying, you keep trying. And like, then a chick that like, and I ain't gonna lie, these women and the people that really have the really good podcasts, for the most part, they're really good at articulation, right? That's something that I communicate the way I choose to communicate. I communicate in a way because I want to maintain accessibility, and I try to lean into authenticity, sometimes to my detriment. But I know what makes them feel credible is how they really lay things out. And I think where it takes that weird turn is when they commodify murder and make this murder so lighthearted. And that's what they're doing right now with the Murdaugh case, is make like I'm feeling this, like people are making jokes. And even though these are I'm not shedding tears, too many tears for a white, wealthy, dynastic family. But as a human being, this is still murder. This is still violent crime, violence visited upon bodies of people. Like I'm not pro murder. I'm not pro homicide. I'm not, and I just think that we do these really weird things with murder where we're okay with this, because this is very different from S-Town. This right here feels exploitative. S-Town felt like, while they might have missed the mark with the suicide aspect, I felt like it had compassion and care, right? Same thing with Serial. Serial was thorough, and there was compassion and care there, whereas this is just so back to my original point. I'm hating that they get like 500,000 downloads a episode or whatever, a month rather, and I'm just like, I don't know how to make my content click, and yet this shit clicks like easy. I don't get it. With their dollar store tablecloths and cheap Party City decorations on the table. Like, I don't get it.
Percent of their audience is female.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of women listen to true crime because it's a way to kind of feel like you have control over the situation, even though you don't.
It took a moment for Bo to realize that both of his parents were dead.
Why do you think women are attracted to listening about true crime?
I think that it's because women are so often portrayed as victims in the media. And women in particular like to think about something and understand it in order to overcome like anxieties based around that.
And everyone loves a taboo subject.
Yeah.
And if you say you don't, you're lying.
Wine and Crime is just one of thousands of true crime podcasts that hit home with a
It feels like the TJ Maxx, no shade because I'm in TJ Maxx, I'm a Maxxinista, but it feels like the TJ Maxx of podcasts. Like, very accessible. You got, you're gonna find a couple things in there. I don't know. Who's this? Billy
audience.
And 10 different podcasts.
What's up, Billy?
At least.
Stay sexy.
And don't get murdered.
Arguably the most popular true crime podcast is My Favorite Murder, hosted by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark.
Oh, no,
Within
Jessica.
5 months of their January 2016 premiere, the podcast hit the #1 spot on iTunes.
I don't
Obviously,
get it.
My Favorite Murder paved the way for so many true crime podcasts.
So
They're
many
massive
feminists.
in our world. And also, when we got started, it was easier to launch because we knew that there was a market for it.
This is your chance to tell your hometown or your favorite murder.
Some fans have even taken their shared true crime interest offline to meet up in person.
When you come to
Are
an
they
event
coloring?
like this,
Are they coloring murder books?
So it's not weird to say it.
Murder
I
coloring
really like
books?
The angle that the stories are told
This
from.
is- I'm
It comes from
sorry.
a place of like protecting yourself and standing up for yourself rather than being a victim.
The
That's
podcasts
bullshit.
have also become a support network for listeners to share their anxieties.
We talk about our own mental health struggles, physical health struggles. I mean, that stuff comes up all the time. I think it's just relatable. My therapist checks in with me every day, reads what I have to say. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. Highly recommend.
A lot of people have problems, and it's nothing to be hidden away and be ashamed of. It means the world to us that we are such a part of people's lives, and they find some sort of comfort and help from our show.
To have impact on
Yo, I
people
don't see
like
no
that.
chocolate chips
What
in
does
the
that mean?
audience.
I think that has been the biggest surprise of this whole experience.
That's my case.
The Great Minnesota Get-Together! If we can be a small part of someone's self-care,
That's huge.
that's huge.
Homicide will never be an aspect of my self-care. I repeat, homicide will never be an aspect of my self-care. And I'm thinking, cause so I'm a young, yes, I am. I'm a young woman raised on Oprah, right? So Oprah was on after school, and Oprah, I think, and she's problematic as fuck when you revisit some of her content, but for the most part, we get it, right? It's like infotainment. But she did this show about like how women should protect themselves or can protect themselves. And I felt like that conversation is real and valid. Like, I'm very grateful to some of the content that Oprah did put out in terms of like, never go to the second location or listen to your fear. Like, don't ignore your fear whenever you get your spidey sense start tingling as a woman. Use that as a sign to get the fuck out. Even if you're overreacting and safe. Like, so there is content that deals with that. This is not that. You going over a 1970 murder from the Bay, San Francisco, some shit is not that. And I think that's just the kind of some podcasts do what the women say that they do in terms of like, oh, it's a way for you not to feel like a victim. But nah, it's just y'all just like hearing about murder. Y'all just like hearing about murder. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat. Billy IE, welcome to the chat. I don't think I've read your name in the chat before. You said you get tired of hearing these big gas when serial killers are given life or death sentences. Yeah, I don't say I'm not pro death penalty. Not for Dylan Roof, not for anyone. And I'm not saying I have this like pious, I guess, perch from which I'm looking down on. It's just that because we know how imperfect the justice system is, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't be in the practice of taking a life, right? Especially when we know disproportionately that poor Black and brown people get murdered by the state for crimes they did not commit, right? Yeah, and I'm tired of hearing like the cheers when people are talking about the life sentences and the death sentences. Commodification and distancing from the judicial/penal institutions and justification through focusing on extreme cases with no sociological analysis. Billy, who is this? Billy IE, who is this? Who are you? Come through with the analysis and justification through focusing on extreme cases with no sociological analysis of why crime happens. Come on. And so going back to the 1A episode from February, and we're going to skip, well, damn, they be putting it on a lot. We're going to try to skip to the 18th minute, 15 seconds at a time. Let me see if they let me. Oh, they do. Okay. Oh, good. Let's get to the 18-minute mark and let's listen. And then we're going to go back to some more videos about this whole, what I fear within this genre, especially as it pertains to the Murdaugh family, their shenanigans. I'm going to turn up a little bit. RIP to your eardrums. I'm sorry if it's loud, but just turn down your volume.
To learn about other women getting killed more than men getting killed. If the victims are male, they're not as interested. And so when I step back...
This was a psychologist or someone in that realm trying to explain the phenomenon why women are so pulled and so drawn to the genre. Again, acknowledging my Dateline watching ass, my Forensic Files watching ass. My single female behavior is very weird, but it definitely included this at one point. Now I can't do it. My anxiety won't let me do it. But I'm so distracted. So what you just heard from was the expert explaining the phenomenon from a psychological point.
All these factors together, I found that they're really all related to survival, Jessica. Right? And it ties in with one of the quotes you had here at the beginning. A woman was saying she listens to My Favorite Murder because she can learn how to not put herself in some sort of, dangerous situation. Gonna learn that from a podcast. And I think that is something that may be an appeal of a lot of these podcasts. Even if people aren't consciously aware of it, they're learning how to basically prevent a crime or survive a crime if they happen to be kidnapped or something like that.
Now, JQ, true crime has been accused of being very white, not only with the audience skewing mainly towards white women, but the stories they focus on as well. How much have you noticed that in the genre?
Oh, I've 1000% have noticed this. And I think it's part of the reason that I pursued this podcast.
Honor.
I think one of the reasons that it's so white is access, for one. I mean, it costs money to make a podcast.
Yes.
Especially if you're doing investigative work.
Yes.
Especially depending on the quality of sound you have. All of those things require resources. I think another factor is the relationship that different communities have with law enforcement.
Yes.
If you come from a marginalized community,
like the
where you may be a little more afraid to go to the police, that case may not get as much attention because a lot of the podcasts are done based off research from things like articles or even things like police reports. So I think that that's a major factor there and why you see so many white women both covered in the podcasting genre and represented as hosts and reporters in the true crime genre.
So yeah, I hate these what about scenarios that sometimes people do is very lazy, but I'm gonna be lazy and be problematic. Like, what if the Murdaugh family, what if wealth was still there? Maybe not the same amount of wealth, but a significant amount of wealth was there. What if this was like a Black family from Orangeburg and their legacy was more maybe not criminal, maybe it wasn't a family of prosecutors and whatnot, but what if it was like, ooh, I'm gonna be real problematic. Like, what if it was a fictionalized version of like the Sellers family? Like, Cleveland and Bakari Sellers. Only reason why I'm being problematic is because, Bakari had like a little, when he was younger, little DUI situation, right? And it made me think of Alex Murdaugh, the dude that was at the helm, drunk driving that boat that unfortunately killed that young girl. But what if it was like this powerful, this influential family, black family from Orangeburg, and influential black family from Orangeburg that had like, would people be as interested if it was like NAACP, if it was like civil rights leader and their children kind of come being a mess? And I'm not saying that Bakari's a complete mess. I'm not saying that, but there was some things that you can just Google it and see the dash cam. But like, and there was some other things too that I cannot talk about. But like, no, but like, just what if would it be different? Would people be as intrigued? Would it be on the Today Show? Would it be on CBS This Morning? Would it be on Good Morning America? Right? I don't think it would.
How much do you think about which stories you tell on your podcast?
Well, Kristen and I talk about this quite a bit.
This is really
First
good.
of all, we're not going heavy on case after case, which some podcasts do. And some podcasts I know who are doing weeklies will do a different case every single week, excuse me. We don't do that as much. However, a number of us who are in the true crime space, and as I mentioned, I know a lot of people in this world, victims, families, investigators, and true crime podcasters. A lot of us are very much aware of the issues that JQ just mentioned, and we're trying very hard to provide balanced coverage. So, for instance, Kristen and I will brainstorm when we do cover a case. We've made a significant effort to try to make certain that we're not just covering pretty blonde white girls who went missing at age 17, and to make certain that our casework and the references that we make reflect a more diversified group of people, even if that's of crime victims. So we've really tried to be very conscious in our first year about making certain that we're covering a variety of different people from a variety of different backgrounds.
Here's a message we received from Michelle.
I actually am a surviving family member of a homicide victim, and unfortunately, someone with the best interest showed me the crime scene photos yesterday from a book that was published, from a true crime book, and I would deeply appreciate understanding the allure of adding these photos to stories when the family members are still alive. I don't understand why that's okay.
Me neither.
Bill, as someone who has experience with this, what are your thoughts on using crime scene photographs or when podcasts use graphic language to describe a crime scene?
Billy, you're right.
Well, Kristen and I try to studiously avoid graphic language because it's very easy for me to put myself in the place of a family member. And I think the use of crime scene photos is problematic.
So just so you know, the guy you're hearing, he is also a family member of a victim of homicide, and so it was his personal relationship to that family tragedy that I guess he became the spokesperson, because I think it was a serial murder type situation, but he became the de facto spokesperson for folks who were touched by the person who responsible for the homicides. And so he's in there. But you're right, Billy, to your point, it's not just about being, and I talk about that often, right? Like how representation can give you the illusion, it can present the illusion of a thoughtful race analysis, right? Just because you put more Charleston wine and food, I'm watching you. Or food and wine, whatever it is. Charleston wine, I'm watching you. It ain't enough to have these beautiful and awesome and talented black creators in your Instagram feed. I need to know, did you change the way you hired? Were there key changes in the way you go about business? What does your board look like? What does your staff look like? Right? So representation, we cannot get fooled by representation when it comes up. So to your point, Billy, you are absolutely right. Representation is not a true and thoughtful race analysis, right? To that point, Meg, you says, or when they're alive, right? Yeah, Meg, when you were listening to the audio, I got you.
I think the use of
a little bit more
overly descriptive, let's be honest, gory language to describe crime scenes, it's unnecessary. And as I like to say, how does this move the story forward? How does this help us understand what happened to this person, and can we help law enforcement and other parties move the case forward?
Right.
How does me offering a gory description in florid language on Mind Over Murder help anybody, get anything worth taking away except for torture porn, which is I'm incredibly uncomfortable with.
We got this tweet from Hannah who says, I honestly think the interest in true crime among women is to feel some sense of power over the issue of violence against women.
I don't buy that. I just don't. I think, and I'm not trying to shit on anybody who really loves this genre. I just don't think that's what it is. I think when I was watching Dateline, of course, was I in my living room, y'all, in front of my picture window in Norristown, Pennsylvania, practicing how I would fend off a murderer or a rapist? Was I in there practicing fake jujitsu? Absolutely. Did I take self-defense classes out here with Charleston MMA and take their holiday women's only Krav Maga self-defense classes? Absolutely. Because I watch a lot of Dateline and all that, of course. But I don't think that that's what makes you so want to sit down and watch Forensic Files with a pint of Ben and Jerry's or something. I don't think that is it. I think there's just something in us that likes that type of genre, right? Yeah, I definitely wanted to leave y'all with that visual of me practicing fake jujitsu in my apartment in Norristown, PA. I wanted to play that, and we played the audio from the podcast from NPR. We played the true crime and why it's such a hit from CBS. There was one other thing. Oh, okay. So then again, I am fascinated by crime. I'm fascinated by the criminal justice system. And I spent a lot of time during my college years and shortly thereafter in the North Carolina correctional in North Carolina jails, North Carolina prisons. And my surrogate, it's my surrogate mama, and my best friend at the time, who actually lived over here in Ponderosa, they had a loved one. They had a sibling in jail. My best friend had a sibling that was in prison, and without going too far into the personal family things, I became a friend of Scotty, and we lost touch for a while. When I moved back, we kind of connected, and I was like, yo, I really want to tell you a story. And I had spent so much time just throughout life talking with or corresponding with folks who are either formerly incarcerated or incarcerated. And I'm like, well, I know this person personally, I know this family. Let me try to kind of do an examination or examine our criminal justice system. And that's what I was trying to do with the Free Scotty J podcast series. Again, all the audio wasn't great. It was a lot of things that were barriers to me finishing the series, but I'm proud of what I started. I was proud of what I started. I'll play the teaser.
This is this is just a episode in my life. After we
when did I do this?
Came up under the overpass in
2019
Turton Park. The next 10 minutes of my life changed my life.
So we're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area where the crime took place. And you're hearing Scotty.
When I opened the door and start running out of that car, I was a completely different man. Immediately.
Where was the car?
The car is right here. Right here. Yep.
I don't tell you what the crime was. I don't tell you what the crime was intentionally. I build up to that, not to the end, but in the middle. And I don't tell you much. I just let Scotty kind of just give his testimony. Describe it. We're in a residential area.
Yeah.
Would you characterize this as a black neighborhood? Or?
Yeah.
So
of course, because
yeah.
it's surrounding a black university.
Okay. We can't assume.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we see magnolia trees.
Yeah, but
pretty well kept. So I just can't imagine
But I didn't notice all of that
at night. See, that's what I'm trying to explain. Like this looks like a manicured, very well kept, quiet. Looks like the homes were probably built around the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Old black neighborhood.
Yeah, and so I can't imagine a drug deal going back here. So what do you think brought y'all to this exact corner?
It's just
close to the campus and quiet.
Yeah, and like I said, it wasn't someplace that
how did it look
was
like
predetermined. It's just where we ended up.
And how would you describe that night? Like, what did it look like, feel like? Got my phone.
It felt normal. It felt normal up until the point that when the altercation.
What about the what did it do?
It was dark. It was dark. It was October. It was chilly. And I had on a heavy jacket. You know what I'm saying?
Take me into the car.
Well, I mean, the most vivid thing about the car is maybe the ride. The last 200 of the race. You know what I mean? But yeah, I remember the ride. I remember turning in, and I remember silence. I remember the silence after the bang. That's what I remember. I remember the silence.
I mixed the music up too high.
And I remember the smell of gunpowder.
So that's the teaser, right? And so I wanted to give, that's just me. That's like 4 minutes. Thank y'all for listening for 4 minutes. But what I was trying to do was just introduce you to at least a person, and you're listening to him struggle. That's all authentic. He's struggling to kind of to talk about things. And he's also motioning to me. I know, right? I mixed it too high. In my ears, it sounds like it's overpowering, even though I try so. But I was trying to really get into. Good morning. Trying to really get just center. Basically, so what I end up doing with the podcast is only 5 episodes. What I end up doing is talking to either people who work with incarcerated populations or work with at-risk youth populations, and talk to the formerly incarcerated and center their experience, because it really was about what's life like after you've made contact with the criminal justice system. What's life after you either and with in Scotty's instance, he committed his crime when he was still technically, I guess, a juvenile. He was attending college. Spoiler alert. Not really. We talked about college, but that's what I really liked about the angle that I was trying to invest. Of course, I'm going to be definitely biased toward my own shit. I'm trying to give y'all at least the opening synopsis. Let me see if I can get it of what the podcast is supposed to do. Now I don't even remember what my script was.
No, this is
so I'm going to fast forward this part. We already did that. That's
200.
Figure. Okay, yeah.
But I remember the ride. I remember, and I remember the smell of gunpowder.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of the Free Scotty J documentary podcast series.
Right.
I'm your host, Mika Gadsden. The voices you just heard was...
Right, so basically that's me in the closet on Wamala Island. In a deep closet up against my mom's church polyester church dresses that smell overwhelmingly like white diamonds. But I would, again, like the episode I really like a lot, y'all, Brotherly Love was the first one. I had my twin brother on it because when he first was employed out, when he left college, his first job was working with men who were with a program, a church-based, a faith-based program designed to keep folks, designed to combat recidivism. And so I talked to my brother. The audio isn't great, but the episodes that I really like, I think, are 2 and 3. 2 and 3, but 1 as well too, because we talked to other inmates and it was a lot. There was one interview that I could not use because the inmate came out of the jail experience so traumatized, and so all he could give me was church speak. So you could tell that he retreated to the confines of religiosity, a hyper religiosity, not just, I came out a Christian or I came out a Muslim. He came his trauma was so profound I couldn't use it. Every sentence was about God. It wasn't, and so he couldn't give me an authentic response. And I'm like, his trauma is so deep, and he's still unpacking a lot of these things, and he's trying to give me what he thinks I want, and he's viewing me as an authority figure versus a storyteller. And so just through this whole process of talking to these formerly incarcerated people, and they have remarkable stories and an uncanny ability to really to talk about their experience with the criminal justice system. And to me, that's a more compelling, and not say, okay, let me stop comparing this to My Favorite Murder, because there's no comparison. They're doing two different things. But I think whenever we deal with things, because Scotty's story does deal with murder, Scotty's story, and the other people I talk to deal with other types of violent crime, there was a level of sensitivity though that I felt that I had to demonstrate, because I didn't want people to feel like I was creating an extractive podcast that was My Favorite Murder adjacent. I actually was trying to set myself apart. And yes, I think Serial's influence was big on me here, and I won't say I was imitating it, but I was definitely tapped in. And I would invite y'all, just try to see if you can find it's on Spotify, Free Scotty J episode. Like I said, the audio with my brother in episode 1 is kind of episodes 2 and 3 and 4, but 2 and 3 are like really, 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 really good. And really hard. But anyway, don't nobody want to hear about that, or at least not how I produce it. I'm getting better though. So I wanted to flip back to the other thing before I dip. The other thing that concerns me about the whole Murdaugh coverage and the podcasts that have now become, so popular right now, is that the analysis is just on the scintillating, the analysis or the time spent on the gratuitous aspects. And let me tell you something. I mean, it's already a bizarre story. The Murdaugh family is a bizarre family. This proves that wealth doesn't buy you a conscience. Wealth doesn't buy you credibility. Wealth doesn't buy you it doesn't buy you innocence necessarily, even though it definitely helps them sidestep so many different really sidestep a lot of authority. And so the Murdaugh case is compelling just on its own. The details are bizarre as fuck, but what I'm seeing is that folks are refusing to make a bigger, to really focus on this family having this much power over this much time, and how that kind of, it's inevitable. I think one other tweet that I had about the Murdaughs, I felt like, let me see. Come on. Did I spell it right? Yeah, this is one tweet I had. It says that when your people sends at least 14 people to death row or is mysteriously linked to a couple of other untimely deaths, it feels like karmic retribution. And this was in response to the New York Times publishing the story about the Murdaugh that just got caught up in trying to stage his own death or whatever for insurance money. And again, I'm more interested and intrigued by this family's power and how they've impacted how the deaths of other people have impacted a community from the criminal justice perspective. Like you don't maintain your hold on a region, on 5 counties. You don't maintain power, prosecutorial power over 5 counties for over 86 years and not have somebody caught up in some bullshit, in some miscarriage of justice. And that's something that I feel. Now, y'all keep me honest. Are these podcasts doing a good job? I don't listen to Will Folks or anything that he creates from Fitz News, so you can just miss me with that shit. But do you feel like they are doing a good job in at least outlining what's going on, or are they just becoming the go-to sources for like speculation? Because I've heard all kinds of damn theories that are, to me, y'all, the simplest theory is the theory. Somebody on drugs, somebody coked up, messed up, and got into some bullshit, and they started knocking. I really do think the simplest analysis is probably more accurate analysis. I do think this is a very moneyed and very powerful family that has abused power and money and drugs and people for a long time, and now we're just seeing it kind of bubble to the surface. Wealth just amplifies what you already are. Yes, that's why a lot of lotto winners, can't maintain that, can't keep the wealth. Okay, so this is the last part I wanted to play. So what also creeps me out about a lot of the Murdaugh coverage, the lack of the race analysis, the lack of the class analysis, yes, and I know I'm giving those terms a workout this week. But also I already see it coming. I see the commodification of this white family's murderous ways. I see it coming. I see t-shirts coming. I see mugs and beer cozies coming. Like, I just see it coming. And I think what that does do, like with the My Favorite Murder podcast and its problematic ways, I think that what it does is create a weird cultish like fandom. And I didn't know that this shit existed until like a couple months ago. I stumbled across this piece from a year ago, The Allure of Columbine fandom. I never even thought this was a thing, y'all. We're going to watch this 12 minutes. So just indulge me. This is bananas to me. Side note, I remember I was out of school when Columbine happened. I was on my boyfriend's family. I was in the family home of my boyfriend, my high school sweetheart. I was on the couch because I didn't go to school that day for whatever reason, and I was at their house watching the news when Columbine unfolded. And I remember seeing a live shot. I believe it was a live shot of a student being lowered out of a window, and blood. And I hope I'm not misremembering this, but I remember blood, the student sliding out of the window and like blood being on the building. I hope that is part of my record. But my point is, I remember it unfolding while I was in front of a television screen, and they left this real big, I guess, this impression on my brain and on my heart and my psyche. But this is weird.
A few days before the 20th anniversary of the Columbine shooting, a teenage girl sent the country into a panic.
This is the woman that every law enforcement officer in Colorado is looking for, 18-year-old Sol Pais.
The FBI says Pais is infatuated with Columbine. They're warning the public that she is armed and extremely dangerous.
Nearly 500,000 students are out of school today affected by this apparent threat.
This is wild.
Pais had flown to Denver without telling anyone. When her parents reported her missing, the authorities found out about her obsession with Columbine. Then they learned she had bought a shotgun. More than 20 law enforcement agencies scrambled to find her, trying desperately to prevent the next Columbine.
Oh, okay.
Jefferson County 911. Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
Trigger warning, y'all.
The Columbine massacre is one of the most influential events in modern American history. The shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, wanted infamy, and they got it.
Hey, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, don't come back.
Columbine left an enduring mark on popular culture.
This ain't no V-Tech shit or Columbine, but
Any teenager on YouTube can spend hours watching music videos for songs inspired by the massacre.
I look like Bret Hart mixed with Dylan Klebo, maybe what the propane on my eyes.
Some have hundreds of millions of views.
I didn't know that song was about that. I didn't know that song was about that.
One step deeper into the web, you'll find a world of teenage obsessives who openly glamorize Harris and Klebold. They are, in a word, fans. This is the world that Sol Pais inhabited. And it's one where she found friends.
Found friends.
These girls, they look like they're spending a lot of time on these edits. They do all these transitions.
Anna, who asked us not to use her last name, was born nearly a year after Columbine.
What?
At 17, she stumbled on a documentary on YouTube that dramatized the shootings. Sol Pais had seen the same video, and they soon found each other in a loose network that called itself the True Crime Community, or TCC.
Hello?
Oh, this is the TCC account. Okay.
Yeah, I'll play this one. It's just like an edit.
Y'all, let me again, trigger warning. I totally forgot that they showed, of course, it's about Columbine. I should have known better. So trigger warning is not gratuitous, but there's violence and references and images from the Columbine massacre. But like this thing right here is so peculiar to me. And so you say, Mika, what does this got to do with the coverage, the white supremacy problem that you alluded to in the Murdaugh comment? I do think this is how white supremacy works in that subversive way, in that it legitimizes and humanizes. They did it with Dylan Roof as well. Humanized people capable of some of the most unthinkable and unspeakable murders or crimes. And then it does this weird mutation where it becomes, this girl wasn't even born when Columbine happened, but look at her gleefully pouring over all of this Columbine inspired content. And I think that this is how you see white supremacy, because you could never do this shit. You show me where the riots of the 60s that took place in black and brown communities from coast to coast. You tell me where that shit is glamorized and turned into a whole cult-like following that can inspire generations. Like, you don't see that type where black bodies are either proximate to crime or accused of crime. You do not see this type of humanization of a black assailant, alleged assailant, or whoever. And it's just really weird how you not only, it's not even normalizing it. You're going to hear this girl say some wild shit, but the way they have turned Dylan and whatever his name is into martyrs is ridiculous. And you say, well, Mika, that can't happen with the Murdaugh, because the Murdaugh family is easy to hate. Maybe in real time now, but the way we create content right now, as we see right here with the Columbine shit, the way we contextualize these crimes now will have an effect or impact on not just the criminal justice system, or not just our relationship to the criminal justice system, how cases are prosecuted, but it's going to have an impact, maybe unintended, maybe intended, on some other impressionable minds, or it's going to have some sort of impact culturally on people. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was my high school. Really? Jessica, you everywhere. You're like the Forrest Gump of everything. For real? I'm not, and I don't mean that like, no shade. Forrest Gump was actually dope as a character, but you know what I'm saying? You everywhere. I'm sorry. I'm always going left. Jessica, you everywhere though. Okay, L. Hancock, you say the same thing. It's disgusting. Like those ladies are fangirling in the courtroom, right? Yeah, over the Night Stalker. Yeah. Here we go. Speak
like clips, and
this is wild.
I really like the aesthetic of that video.
The aesthetic.
Like, just it looked like a VHS tape. That's why I posted it.
You've said that you didn't condone what they did, but like seeing that video, it looks like they're being glamorized.
Like, I don't see why anyone would want to do that now, but like back then I just like was like, it looks cool or something, like that's the whole point of the account. Like,
I'm not gonna lie, like I've been reading about this and I knew about this, but just for some reason actually seeing your profile and actually seeing it is like, Like, I'm actually sort of disturbed by it in a way that I didn't.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
If you're disturbed by mine, I just would say buckle up.
After they met online, Sol and Anna became real-world friends.
She was really funny. She had a dark humor, and I really liked her style. It was.
We love calling white supremacy dark humor. It's not dark humor. It's not. We love calling like white. Well, let me just more actually say like white violence is not dark humor. Like, we gotta stop with that shit, man. It's not.
Really unique, and
I got you.
She was really kind.
Oh my gosh, fucking queen.
Stop. Let me film you. We bonded over a lot of things, but like one of the main things was everything just about Columbine.
Tell me about how you got into that world.
I was at like a really, I guess you could say, emo time in my life, I guess. I was like 17. I kind of liked the way that they dressed, which is kind of like weird, but I think that they had like a pretty cool like style. That's what like Sol tried to like replicate their style a little bit. But another part that really drew me to it was like, since I was dealing with depression at the time, Dylan's writing was like just really interesting to me. It was like beautiful and depressing at the same time. I just really was sad for like how he became, because he was like, I think he was like really cute.
Joy.
But like what he did like is just so, I never really like excused it.
Yes, you are.
I tried to focus on like
he is me right now.
The good things about him.
The good things about
Harris
him.
and Klebold wrote the script for the modern era of school shootings.
This is how Dylan Roof went to Burger
Many
King.
shooters since have cited them as an inspiration. That includes the student who, in 2007, perpetrated what remains the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history at Virginia Tech University. Years later, the university turned the rooms where the massacre happened into a center for the study of violence
Murder
prevention.
is not entertainment, is my
That
point.
center is
Murder
run by
is
Jim
not
Hodden,
entertainment.
a sociologist who studies school shooters.
It will never
and
be
their
entertaining
families.
to me.
These are groups that legitimate violence. And, you know, the more you participate in these groups, the more this becomes seen as a potential solution to your problems.
Meg, I never seen
Even
this
if
shit
any
before.
given member of one of these
Before a few
groups
months
never
ago.
intends to go out and harm someone else, they're still creating spaces where that kind of behavior is justified at a minimum.
Right, justified and encouraged.
Anna mostly kept her interest in Columbine a secret, including from her parents, who had been monitoring her activity online for years.
Not closely enough.
So we made sure that Anna didn't have a phone until she was 13.
What was it like for you having a daughter who was, you know, coming of age right as these technologies were developing?
Well, it was challenging. I don't think that I even still know everything that she's, you know, gathered from the internet.
Anna's mother knew Sol and knew that she and Anna had met online, but she didn't know what had initially brought them together.
She would say, "Oh, Mom, I have the coolest friend. Her name is Sol. Isn't that the best name?" And Anna was very excited to find somebody that she could talk with and kind of relate to.
KCJ 18, they all for real. Oh, we monitor, you know, we stand over their shoulder and the computer's in the kitchen. And, you know, meanwhile, there's a pipe bomb in the goddamn garage.
Early in 2018, Anna and Sol started to drift. That February, the Parkland school shooting claimed 17 victims. The shooter had researched Columbine in the days leading up to the attack. That's when Anna says she started losing interest in Columbine.
I forgot about that.
But Sol didn't have the same reaction.
I just don't think it really hit her like as much as it should have. Because I mean, she was so into Columbine, and she just like at one point started excusing like what Eric and Dylan did.
In the months that followed, Sol wrote in her journal about feeling trapped in the wrong reality and about her feelings of longing for Eric
this is
Harris.
mental illness. And Eric
Sol
Harris was
posted the
mentally
journal
ill.
online
The
before
killers
she
were
went
mentally
missing.
ill.
It was one of the first things police found.
It kind of gives me chills. Like when I first found out that website, a whole like cloud of dread passed over me. Like, this is not going to end well.
Sol was specifically into Eric Harris, right?
Yeah.
In what way?
I think she truly believed that he was her soulmate.
When Sol arrived in Denver, she took an Uber to an isolated place in the mountains nearby. That's where the trail went cold.
Okay.
The FBI suspected that Sol was hiding out in the wilderness, planning an attack timed to the anniversary of Columbine. But Bruce Snelling, the local undersheriff, was skeptical.
It becomes what's the easier, more likely scenario, and I really don't think that an advanced placement honor roll student who's 18 years old, not super familiar with guns, maybe has the skill set to complete a school shooting.
Whoa.
The next day.
Whoa. What math did you just do there, partner? The fuck? What math did he just do there? And this
Bruce Snelling.
This is my fear. I don't know what the fuck an undersheriff is either. It's like on par with a constable, it sounds like. That's my fear, right? Is that when we interrogate these crimes or when we pull them apart, and I'm not trying to be overly critical of that one sentence, but I don't know what kind of math he just did there. Like, I don't think you don't think a smart kid can complete a school shooting? Those Columbine kids. Columbine was a good school, right? A good public school. Like, those Columbine kids are probably really smart. Like, what are you talking about? And like, my fear is that exactly, L. Hancock, you put the white in there with an asterisk. They don't factor that into the equation. They don't put that part into it. And I remember I got into a little nose to nose with one of these white supremacists here. It was like all these neo-Nazis, literally, I shit you not, neo-Nazis at the Calhoun Monument. I was there supporting a friend who was participating in something. And I like dropped my shit and was about to fight this neo-Nazi. And I came and he said something like, he accused me of like, you could be a terrorist. I'm like, no. I said, no, motherfucker, I don't fit the motherfucking profile. And then he kind of got upset. And I'm like, it's the truth though. Like, you know, so my point is like, we do this thing where we're not, whiteness is never really introduced to the equation. And I think, you know, that's a big problem that has these unintended, not even it's intended in some aspects, but I don't know if I'm making sense. But just when you remove whiteness from the profile, from some of these crimes and what these crimes typically. Now I know DC sniper. I know black people kill people too. I get it. Brown people kill people too. Got it. Really got it. But this is not about saying that black people don't commit crimes and white people do. This is more about like when it comes to these mass murders or people's fascination with these cases. We don't really explore the whiteness of it all, if that makes any sense, right? So this is not, and I know somebody's gonna misconstrue this whole live stream and say that I'm trying to excuse black crime. I'm not. I literally just did a podcast series dealing with people who admit to committing crimes. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a more nuanced conversation about it all and how we discuss it and how we look back at these, even Dylan Roof. You heard the black woman talking about he's just a baby. This humanizing of people to that degree, we should never other them to the point where they lose their humanity. But what we should definitely not do is turn them into martyrs or victims or infantilize them.
The local undersheriff was skeptical.
It becomes what's the easier, more likely scenario, and I really don't think that an advanced placement honor roll student who's 18 years old, not super familiar with guns, maybe has the skill set to
she probably tried and just failed.
Shooting.
The next day, Snelling had a SWAT team search within a mile of where Sol was last seen.
They looked up a hill, they saw where somebody had fell in through the snow knee deep, up to a flat landing, and then discovered the body of Sol Paez. Was dead from a single shot from a shotgun. And when it was hitting the airwaves, national news, she had already ended her journey, and she had no idea that information about her had exploded.
Did Sol Paez ever make any explicit threats to carry out any violent acts against other people?
Sol Paez made no specific threat to any particular school, period. Right? That
that did not present itself in the information that I saw.
Okay. I bet she thought about it.
I went and turned on the news and I saw, and then like I felt awful because I knew that you were going to find out in a moment that you had lost your friend.
When you figured out the relationship that this whole situation had with Columbine, what did you think?
Yes.
On the news, they kept talking about fandoms. Is that the right word? And that was something new to me.
Very new to me.
I asked Donna, like, help me understand this,
What did you say?
So I tried to explain to her, like, there's people out there, like, how someone likes One Direction? Well, there's someone out there like that for Charles Manson,
That's
for
crazy.
Ted Bundy, for Dylan and Eric from Columbine.
I said, how can anybody idolize or like someone that has hurt so many people?
Like maybe the owner of slaves? Like maybe people who owned enslaved Africans and tortured them and then names the high school after them? I don't get it either.
And she said, Soul didn't like what they did, but she related with them. And you said you related a little bit with Dylan.
Why do you think there are young people who can relate to things like that?
I think people feel alone and they're searching for someone to feel connected with.
But why murder?
Why they feel alone? I don't
get the
probably
psychology
as
of
many
this.
different reasons as there are people,
There are now fans of Sol Pais on the internet.
Now she's a thing.
Much like she was once a fan of the Columbine shooters. These fandoms have less to do with school shootings than with what lies at the root of them. According to recent data, nearly all mass shooters in schools are suicidal.
I'm saying.
And that, more than anything,
something.
accounts for their appeal to
I
young
don't believe
people
in jails
online.
nowhere, but I hear
That
you.
one's just talking about her depression.
I'm literally going to kill myself soon.
Yeah.
Let's pray that I succeed this time.
This is
With
the
an
type
anagram.
of what I'm talking about, like on these accounts. These are what these girls would post, and then
But so-
look at this. This one says, "I want to die."
When adults think about the fact that there are teenagers online who obsess over Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, they assume that they're into the like homicide aspect of the story. When
But
I wonder
I hear you.
if it might have more to do with like the suicide part of the story.
It is.
I hear you.
Like I
I
don't
hear
think
you.
any of these girls want to kill anybody.
Other than themselves.
Yeah, other than themselves. Yeah.
Huh.
Have you thought about taking down your Instagram account? The TCC one?
I kind of want to keep it, just like to show like how like I've changed.
No.
I don't know. Like it's a part of me I'm not a big fan of, but for some reason like I just don't want to delete it.
Side note, she's still getting a lot of traction and attention, and she still likes the clicks and the likes, and she doesn't care that it's predicated upon her fascination with murder. Mass murder. Yeah, I don't know how they turn murderers into icons. Slave owners. Tourism in Charleston. So this is the thing. Like when you are out here and you are covering the Murdaugh family, and you're covering this really, again, it hits close to home. It's intriguing. I'm intrigued. I stop and look at the TV whenever a new bizarre headline comes up. I'm not denying the attractive elements in terms of like the entertainment value that just is what it is, right? Especially how we get our media. But this is, to me, the fear when you don't evaluate the coverage. And this is just me saying the same thing essentially about the state of media in South Carolina. But now we're talking about murder. We're talking about a family, a very wealthy and prominent family. And so, pardon me, I just think that we have to be more intentional about not just, hey, we got a true murder podcast right here in Hampton County. Here's how we can make it our own. But what type of analysis are folks making? And who are leading these podcasts? Are the journalists from Fitz News and the journalists from Island Packet or the State, Post and Courier? Are there people from marginalized communities investigating these cases? Are they able to apply their lens and their experience to unpacking what's going on with these cases? Or is this just clickbait? Is this just, and that's what I think the, let me actually do that. Let me, Avery Wilkes is, is a bunch. I mean, he's written about the whole sled thing. I'm gonna hit the news tab. I'm gonna make this larger so y'all can see it on your end. All right. Fuck Fitz News all day. And I'm sure he's enjoying the clicks. But yeah, like, no, here we go. That's just something else. No. Let me not do news. God damn. All right. No. Wait, what's muckrack? What's muckrake? Muckrack. Is that just a place for journalists? So there was a story initially when let's see. Right. Okay. So these are Avery's this is the Avery coverage. So I remember early on it was like more so about the like SLED kind of just not letting folks not being transparent and not disclosing things that should have been disclosed to the public. Anyway, I was trying to find it, but nah, I can't find the one story I'm trying to reference. But yeah, it's just really, there's another aspect of it, and I think that this story, like, this needs as many perspectives as possible. It needs as many types of reporters as possible to cover, so that we do not just kind of skate over some of the more consequential elements of the case. And again, I'd like to interrogate, me personally, I know that's not always the aim and objective. Journalism's sole purpose is not to meet Tamika's crazy, inane standards that are not crazy or inane, but you get what I'm saying. I know I can be very specific and singularly focused in terms of interrogating power, especially white power. But I just feel like we need to make sure we understand that who covers this story and how it's covered is important, and that we not just click on it because it's salacious and it's in our backyard. And we also need to understand too, like, how this violence is being presented. I just been very dissatisfied and disappointed at various news outlets, especially Fitz News. So Fitz News, you know, they decided to tag themselves in a discussion about, you know, me and Pepe discussing, you know, or confronting MAGA sycophants, and it turned into, oh, let's make sure we hold the white woman up on a pedestal and protect her white womanhood, and she's the real victim, even though that white woman had, you know, also been, you know, threatening, was very vocal at all the you know, don't mask our kids early Mount Pleasant conversations. She's been out there peddling conspiracy theories, completely detached from reality. But the story that Fitz News walked away from and covering our little thing was, oh, black bully and brown bullies victimize white womanhood. I would almost, and again, I don't listen to Fitz News. I don't read. I don't listen to any of their content, because I know it skews MAGA and skews QAnon and skews white supremacists and skews Confederate. But I would imagine that angle is probably very prevalent, and that's going to be the de facto authority, voice of authority in the state. When people try to talk about and learn more about the Murdaugh case, they're going to learn from a white man who's a pro-Confederate flag, right? And I think that's going to be a problem. I think it's going to be a problem. Noah, you said exactly, if you don't make a helpful analysis, I feel like it's gratuitous and gory. I'm giving that word a workout too. Gratuitous and race analysis and class analysis. I say it too much. I gotta find some synonyms. Yeah. Oh, Noah, your last comment says they act like they're condemning it, but they're really just creating a spectacle, right? Without solutions. And I think without that proper context, that's all you do is you create this sort of sensationalism around this crime. And again, I don't think that the Murdaugh families are particularly vulnerable, or do I think that they are martyrs. However, I won't remove their humanity and saying that this is about tremendous loss of life, not just within the family, but around the family. And that right there is the real story, not this bizarre bullshit of having your cousin Jethro kind of graze you, while you fake change a tire, right? Let me just say that if I'm a millionaire, or if I come from a family with access to millions, I'm not changing my own fucking tire. I don't change it now, and I'm broke. AAA, State Farm, roadside. I ain't changing no goddamn tire. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got, y'all. Don't make this murder. Don't make the Murdaugh shit. Don't make this another Murderino bullshit. Don't make this My Favorite Murder. Don't glorify. Don't commodify. And more importantly, don't forget to add the proper lens and to think about the most vulnerable who have been impacted by the Murdaughs and their murderous ways. If you get a chance. Oh shit, I didn't do it. I was supposed to do that. If you get a chance, go ahead and listen to Free Scotty J. I like episodes 2, 3, maybe 4. I like episode 5. Oh, I liked episode 5. Yeah. The tools, the box. This is when Columbia did the whole ban the box measure on applications. So those who are formerly incarcerated don't have to disclose whether or not they were formerly incarcerated on their job applications. We talked about that being a barrier for folks. But yeah, if you get a chance to do that. Also, if you get a chance, thank you so much for the subscriptions. Thank you so much for the support. But make sure that you, if you really, really want to become a sustaining member, head to my Patreon page. It's a mess. I'm going to clear it up. I promise you I'm going to clean it up. But head to my Patreon page. Even $1 a month. Shout out to the new subbies. $1 a month will go a long, long, long way into like helping me create this content and to keep nice mics like this. To keep those things within reach and to help create really dope content. I got a lot of great things I'm working on. A lot of good people pouring into me. Great ideas. So I'm looking forward to having that manifest. But please think about becoming a Patreon subscriber. I got to do better at that. Thank you so much for everything. Joy, what did you say? Thank you for saying that. This is not a soap opera. We shouldn't downplay the loss. Yeah. Thank you so much, y'all, for listening. Thank you for listening to other podcasts while I'm live streaming. I know that's not always visually. Some people listen to this and don't watch it, so that's great. But for those who are watching it, sometimes that part I'm always kind of like, apprehensive about playing too much audio, but I think it works for this medium. So thank you so much for indulging me. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to, real quick. I'm going to return to making podcast content very soon. I just got burnt out by the water equity podcast. I got really burnt out doing that in a good way, a good burnout. But I look forward to reviving the podcast, hopefully this week. But no promises. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for rocking with me today. Have a good Thursday. All right. Bye.